All right. Well, he's won his first two and he's looking to stretch it to three on February 28th. It is none other than Aidan Egler. Aidan, so good to talk to you, man. How you been?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing wonderful. I do have to just mention there is a missing tooth right in the front right there. And I just wanted to ask you the story behind that because it's not every day you see that.
Yeah. No, it was just a sparring incident about a month ago. I was going with another teammate of mine who happens to be on the same card, Alden. This upcoming the upcoming card, and I just freak accidentally kneed me in the face. It was it wasn't a big deal at first. It just kind of moved my tooth, I thought, and then when I finally went to go get it checked out, they were like, "Yo, your tooth's infected and it's cracked all over. Like, we got to take this out, otherwise it's gonna cause a lot of issues." So. So, I might get it like an implant eventually, and then get a I think they call it a crown, so it's just like a fake tooth that stays in all the time. But I'm not planning on doing that anytime soon, so I'm just gonna wear like a little fake flipper tooth for the time being, and then figure that out later.
What's it like training with a guy like Alden? I feel like so many people love training with him. He's been a mainstay in the state for so long.
He's a badass. I like training with him. Every time that I get to like do one-on-one stuff with him, it's awesome because he helps me out a ton. He's like one of the only people that I feel like can sit down and like tell you everything you're doing wrong, but not do it in like a mean way, and just kind of help you actually feel like you're getting better. Sometimes you train for like a month or so, and you don't really know because there's not anybody, telling you how to correct every little thing. But Alden's definitely the kind of guy that'll be like, yo, this is what you should try doing. And every time he tells me anything, I listen. It's one of those things.
It's so funny. I remember very specifically April 20th last year. It was a belt promotion going on at Agima. I had a
Yeah,
couple of friends that were getting belted up, so I actually was able to come because I was in town for the show, obviously. Your
right.
debut was that night, and
Oh
you and
yeah.
Alden were talking game plan the entire time. And I loved hearing that. Has he always kind of been a bigger brother figure for you in the gym?
Honestly, yeah, it's happened like that day when I
Really?
first like really talked to him. Yeah, he just kind of there was a time where he would teach like the classes when I first started going to Agima. And he told me he was just kind of like, "Yo, you're one of the only people that I've seen that actually looks like he kind of knows what's going on," you know? And so that day that I was about to have my debut, he was just talking to me the whole time about how he was excited to get to watch me fight, but he was also just trying to give me some tips and things to help me with the nerves and all that kind of stuff.
How do you feel like you've been able to level with your nerves over the course of the past couple of fights?
Honestly, I feel like I've gotten way better at it. The first fight was weird because it was the first time I'd ever done that, so it felt like I wasn't really there fully. Like it really did feel like a dream. I think I said that in the interview after, but it really didn't even feel like I was doing that. And then the second fight, I felt way more like conscious and in the moment, like I knew what was going on the whole time. And yeah, no, I feel like it definitely leveled up a lot in comparison to the first fight. The first one I was kind of like freaking out a little bit in the back. Dane was helping me calm down. But then that second fight I just felt like I knew where I was, I knew what I wanted to do, and I got it done.
Oh, we've certainly seen exponential growth. I mean, from the first fight to what you did in that second fight with a
Right.
14-second finish, a stark differential there. For you, what do you think it was that kind of got you not necessarily interested in fighting, but what kind of gave you that knowledge and that ability to kind of naturally be a fighter like Alden was talking about?
Um, I don't know fully. I think it was just like um I just have always felt like just tough. Like I've never had a problem with competition. I've never had an issue with following through with something. Like especially if it was hard. I wrestled and played football for most of my life, so those are like my main two sports. And I've always like played something at a competitive level, and I just have always felt like it's been important for me to compete. And I didn't have anything to compete in for a while there once high school was over, and I didn't have any sport to play after that. And so I kind of started jujitsu a little bit, and I liked doing the tournaments here and there, but they weren't giving me the same feeling. And then I had watched a UFC event live with my dad one day, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's pretty badass. I think I want to do that." And I told him about it, and he was like, "Well, then quit telling me about it. Go fucking do it." And I was like, "All right, my bad." So yeah, like that week, I went and tried to find gyms to train at, Agima was the first one that showed up, and I just was like, I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna go train here and see what happens. See how long it takes me to get a fight, and yeah, that was pretty much the whole plan after that.
Where did you grow up that made you find Agima? Did you grow up in that Provo Orem area?
No, I actually grew up like in Saratoga, so I'm not super close to Agima. Like it's probably like 40 minutes or so. But I just I was looking up the thing that happened was I was at that UFC event and I was sitting next to Court and I had no idea. My dad knew that we were sitting next to Court. He like saw him out of the corner of his eye or whatever and was like, I think that's Court McGee. And I like looked over and I didn't see him at first, so I just was kind of like, I don't know who he's talking about, whatever. Like kept watching the fight, and then fight ended. Court's walking past us, and I was like, "Oh shit, that is Court McGee." And I'd watched The Ultimate Fighter. I knew who he was. I wasn't a super fan of the UFC at the time yet, so I knew who he was, but I wasn't like giddy yet. And then after a minute or two of like realizing that I'm standing next to this guy, I was like, "That's pretty sweet, actually." Realizing that he was right next to me, and like I didn't even ask for a picture. I just was like kind of in awe. And then I think it was 6 months after that UFC event was when I was telling my dad the whole thing about me wanting to probably be an MMA fighter. And he told me to start looking up gyms. And I did. And I looked up Agima as one of the first two. It was that one and I think Wasatch Combat were the two that I was looking at originally. And I saw the coaches list for Agima, and Court McGee was on there. And just because I had seen him and knew who he was, I was like, I want to go train there. So the first day I showed up at Agima, he was there. He was teaching one of the jiu-jitsu classes, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is pretty sweet. I'm gonna sign up instantly. And then, yeah, I just went from there.
What a story. That is absolutely incredible. I'm sure you've relayed this now to Court.
No, I actually don't even think I've ever told him that, but he'll find out.
We'll clip this up. That's such a great story.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in people that come from sports prior. Specifically, a lot of people come from the wrestling world. What did you specifically play when you were playing football?
I played safety and corner, so I played defense my whole life. Um, I didn't know anything about the offensive side of the ball at all. I just wanted to tackle people and hit people. I was also really small, so it was uh it was one of those things where like my mom was always concerned, that I was like just a tiny little guy out there all the time, but I hit hard and I like to tackle and stuff, so I've always kind of been aggressive, and I think that's what's helped with the transition into MMA and all that kind of stuff.
How does your mom feel about you fighting now, given that she was a little nervous about you playing football?
Uh, Not great, but she's supportive of it, definitely. She will close her eyes at times, when I actually am fighting.
Are you super tight with your parents?
Yeah, yeah, no, they're the reasons I'm doing it in the first place. If they weren't like, it's not that I wouldn't do it if they weren't supportive, but at the same time, it's been a lot easier with like training as hard as I can and the fight camp stuff and all that with their support. They've helped me a ton.
You kind of touched on this, but I just want to confirm. Do you feel like your wrestling background helped you on the football field and vice versa because you had been, learning how to take people down and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. That was why I started originally. I didn't like wrestling when I first did it. My dad signed me up for wrestling when I was like a real little kid. I think I was like 6 or something, and I did a tournament and I ended up wrestling a really fat kid, and he like pinned me down, and I hated it because I couldn't move, and I was pissed off the whole time. And then I basically freaked out and told my dad I'm never doing that again, all this sort of stuff. And then about, I don't know, 8 years after that, maybe I was in middle school, I think. And he was like, wrestling helps a lot with football. 'Cause my dad wrestled and played football. I don't know if that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
kind of his two things too. So he was like, wrestling helps a lot with football. He was really trying to get me on board with it, and I was super against it for a long time. And then one day I was like, whatever, I'll do it. And I ended up really liking it. I actually loved wrestling for a long time. I kind of fell out of love with it a little bit towards the end, and so that was kind of like a debate, and if I wanted to go to wrestle in college or try to anyway. And I just kind of was like, no, I don't really think I want to. And then that was when the whole loss of competitive sport like hit me, and I was like, no, I need something to do. So, yeah.
It was UFC 278, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. Edwards and Usman, that
What was
too.
your reaction like in that main event? Because that was unbelievable. So many people were there.
Yeah, that one was insane. I didn't think at all that was going to end the way that it did, especially with Kamaru just dominating Leon Edwards for 5 whole rounds until the last minute. It was pretty insane. I think the whole arena went crazy. I didn't even realize what happened really. Like I'm watching it and I saw him fall, but in my head I was like, he'll get up. Like he was out fully and they called the fight and everything, but for whatever reason I was like, there's no way. There's no way that's how that ends. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty insane. It was the loudest I'd ever heard anything in my life, though.
It was deafening in there. It was
Yeah,
absolutely incredible. I apologize. I keep asking about your parents. I'm just so interested in this
no,
now.
that's fine.
Given your dad's background in obviously wrestling and football and all this stuff, it seems like he's had a big influence on your athletic career at large. I asked about your mom. How does your dad feel about it?
My dad loves it. I think my dad is 100% on board. Yeah. He's uh he's really the reason that I'm doing it at all. Like without him, he's kind of like the guy that'll just tell you how it is. If you want to do something, he's like, "Well, then quit talking about it. Just do it." Like if like he's definitely the reason that I've even had the courage to try it at all. And telling him was weird cuz I didn't really know how he was going to react. Like it's MMA. I feel like everybody reacts differently when you tell them that's something you want to do. And he was like 1,000% on board. As soon as I said it, he was like, "Yeah, let's then find yourself a gym. Start training for real." Because at the gym I was previously at, it was just a jujitsu place. So I wasn't getting like actual MMA experience. I had little to no striking at the time, so it was it was just one of those things where as soon as he said like go find a gym, I was on board 1,000%. I was like, yeah, why am I not trying to do this on my own?
Do you commute 40 minutes to a game every day?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
Well,
takes a lot of dedication.
yeah, I mean, it's worth it though. I feel like I have a lot of really good training partners there and really good coaches that help me a ton. And I wouldn't I wouldn't trade it for anything. As much as the gas kind of hurt for a minute there, I got a different car that was better on gas mileage for that reason, so I could keep going down to a game every day and not have to worry about it.
What car did you have before and what do you have now?
I had a Tacoma, and
Oh,
it
okay.
was it was just a gas hog. Every time that I drive down there, every 2 days, I'd be filling up on gas, and then I got a Civic, so that way I got, way better gas mileage and
Yeah.
wasn't paying as much. Well, and I also started going up to train at Rise once a week with Marco,
Right.
and that's pretty far away too, so that was hurting my gas even more. So I figured I definitely needed a different car or something to change in order to keep going up there every week.
Obviously, Agima is the home base. You
Hmm.
go up and train with Marco a lot, as well as you do a lot of stuff with Paul Longworth as well.
Oh,
How
right, yeah.
important is it for you to be making sure that you're getting all your different training in at all these different places, getting new faces as well of just kind of integrating every aspect of MMA and strength and conditioning?
I feel like it always helps. You can learn a lot at one gym. I feel like you can keep one gym and do really good. But I feel like noticing that when you get different looks from different people, even if they're not as good or even whatever, like just somebody that's different. I feel like if you stay at the same gym, you're training with the same 5 to 6 people all the time, and it kind of gets repetitive. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So when I get to go train at those other gyms, I feel like it gives me a different look every time, and it helps me a lot with my just my confidence overall, with feelings how I react to training with people that are just not the same guys that I see every day.
You spoke about having some great training partners. You have a very tight knit friend group now at
Oh
Agima
yeah.
as well. I think of Chris Anderson, Brandon Myers, Dante Morales. What does it mean for you to have that community and how much do they help lift you up during camp and how much are you able to help them during their camps?
It helps a ton. I mean, we're all pretty good for being amateurs, so it helps us all, well, except for Chris, but we're all pretty good, so I feel like it definitely just pushes each person to get better, especially when one guy wins a fight. Chris just won the fight that he just had, you know what I mean? Now we're all kind of trying to push each other to get better every time, and nobody wants to lose. It's one of those things where when you have a group of friends that are all fighters, everything we talk about is fighting, or it comes back to fighting in some way. So even if we're not at practice, we're still talking about fights. We're talking about future fights. We're talking about potential fights that the UFC is making. Like everything is all fight related and comes back to it.
Everyone treats it differently, but I am curious with your specific friend group. Again, like you mentioned, all of you are fighters.
Right.
what is it like dealing when someone does take a loss, when someone doesn't have it go their way on any given night?
I mean, it sucks, when you're watching a friend fight. I think I'm more nervous to watch somebody else fight than I am for myself. And I think everybody feels that same way because you're not in any way in control of what they do and all that kind of stuff. I think when somebody does lose, it sucks because you feel like you lost. You know what I mean? And so we always try and just help each other out, even if somebody does lose, nobody takes it like a bad thing. A loss is a learning curve. If you lose, that just means there's something you got to work on for the next one. It's not a big deal. I don't think that losing should ever be something that is looked at as a bad thing, especially in a fight. Like there's wins and there's losses. They're gonna happen. If you can't move on from a loss, then you're never gonna get better.
I do want to talk about you a little bit in your specific fights. You're now 2-0, and your last one was an extremely fast finish versus Zahan Billy
Right.
Moya. What was that fight like for you? Because it was very different than the debut.
Yeah, that one I felt so much more confident. I had been training with Marco a lot more during that camp, and I think that he helped me with my confidence on the striking a lot more. My Dane and Court and all them, they helped me a ton with the grappling and overall with my fighting style. But I wasn't very confident with my striking when I first walked into the cage that first fight. And I think that getting to train with Marco and really getting to get a different look and to really feel like I felt like I was the guy, As soon as I walked in there, I was like, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I was trying to get done. And I had the exact moment of knocking him out. I had visualized it a million times. And so I knew kind of what was going on. I didn't know when it was going to happen. I definitely didn't think it was going to be the first 14 seconds. That was kind of a shock. But uh, the way that I did it was pretty much exactly how I had pictured it in my mind.
What was it like fighting outside? So many fighters don't get the chance to do
It was weird, honestly. Like
that.
it wasn't too bad. I mean, I'm not gonna say that it was like terrible or anything. It was odd. I will say that. It felt a lot cooler when it was inside because you could hear everybody cheering and all the echoes, and I liked that a lot. Um, but when I walked in that second time, you could hear people cheering, but it cut out immediately, and then it was like silent, and all you could hear was like the wind and the fact that you could see the sky and all that during the fight was kind of weird, but I didn't really notice it once it started. Once
Yeah.
I was actually in the cage, you're not really paying too much attention to what's around you.
This might be a silly question, but did you ever do this or maybe think, hey, maybe I should get some sparring in maybe outside because the fight is going to be outside and acclimating yourself to those elements?
Honestly, I never even thought about that, but that wouldn't have been a bad idea to try. Um, I did a lot of training just on my own outside, though, so I feel like that might have helped a little bit, even if I didn't directly spar outside. I would shadow box outdoors all the time just to kind of help myself. Honestly, that was more for like a meditation thing than it was for anything else, but that might have helped. I don't really know for sure.
Well, if you fight a Bear Lake again, maybe you'll get
Yeah,
the
no, I'll let you
opportunity
know for sure. At that time, I'll probably I'll try and spar outside a little bit, let you know how that goes.
You fought your first fight at 145, second at 135. Was there any specific reason why your debut was at featherweight and then you moved down to bantamweight?
I think I was just nervous about the initial weight cut. I haven't had to cut weight or anything at all since I wrestled, and that's obviously a lot different than cutting weight for a fight because you're constantly cutting the weight. You're doing it every couple days, and rather than having 6 weeks of gradually losing the weight and then having your last little big cut towards the end. So I think I was just kind of nervous about it at first. But once I realized how easily I made 45, I was like, I could definitely go down to 35. It wasn't hard at all. I was damn near at 45 the day before weigh-ins, and I was like, I don't think that's how this is supposed to be at all. So, uh, yeah, I just kind of after that fight, once I won, I was like, I think I want to try 35. I let Dane and Amy know, and they were like, yeah, sure, we can do that. So it wasn't a hard transition.
For you, is there any chance you ever go back to 45, or do you think for the time being it's going to be bantamweight from here on out?
I think I want to stay at bantamweight from here on. I guess if I had to fight a fight at 45, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But I definitely liked the way that I felt at 35. I felt like I was a good size. When I fought the guy originally at 45, I felt like I was small. Even though I think I was a little taller than the guy. He was like way thicker than I was, and it felt weird. It felt like I was like rolling around with a guy that was 3 times the width I was, and I was like, this is interesting. You know what I mean?
How was that initial cut to 35?
It wasn't bad at all, actually. I mean, it wasn't as easy as the 45 cut, but I mean, I had no problem making the weight. So it just was I mean, it's never easy to have to sit there in a sauna, but it's definitely once I saw the weight going down, I was like, oh, I'll be there in no time.
My dear friend Eric Iman loved your Apollo Creed shorts when you
Oh
walked out in
yeah.
your debut.
hmm
I just have to ask you, as a lifelong Rocky fan, like favorite movies of all time, are you a big Rocky fan?
Oh yeah, 100%. That's why I got those shorts in the first place.
Is
That was
Apollo
like,
Creed your favorite character?
yeah, I liked because now my favorite movies are the Creed movies. So Adonis was like my big one. And I was like, this is sick. I wanted to get the Apollo Creed shorts because I liked the way those looked. And I thought about getting like a cool pair. Like I try to change my shorts up for each fight. So I got the blue belt ones are kind of like a BJ Penn tribute. Like I
Those are
saw him
cool.
wearing the black belt shorts one day. I thought those were cool. I wanted to try and find some of my own belt rank, and I got the blue belt shorts. This fight, I haven't yet decided. I think I've got some cool ones on the way, so I'm kind of excited about those, but I'm not going to spoil anything yet.
Whether it be the Creed movies or the Rocky movies, I'd love to get your top five in that franchise really quick.
My favorite training montage of all time is Creed 2, like out of all those movies, so I'd probably put that one at number one. I'd say Rocky 4, number two. I love that movie a lot. Those are really my main two, to be honest with you. I like the rest of them. I'm not gonna say that they're bad or anything like that. But I don't have like a specific ranking for the others. I really loved Creed 2 and Rocky 4 are like my top two of all time though. I rewatch those probably once a week, honestly. They're pretty sick.
February 28th, it's going to be your first time facing a non debuter. What are
Yeah.
you looking forward to in arguably your toughest fight yet?
I'm looking forward to the experience. I think it's gonna be pretty sweet. I like a challenge. They tell me he's a tough guy. I don't know much about him other than how he won his fight, but that's okay. I'm gonna train for him the same way that I would anybody else. I'm just gonna work on everything that I know I need to work on, and I'm gonna go in there prepared for anything.
February 28th, tickets on sale right now at fiercefightingchampionship.com. Aidan, cannot wait for it. We're looking forward to what that performance looks like. Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you.